Welcome to Infinite Novel. Subscribe for more epic stories. All rights to original creators. It's for a good cause, I swear.
Chapter 31 Disclaimer: I do not own Naruto. Note: I realized that in the manga Shikamaru did go after Gaara with everyone, but that was only after Sakura tried to dispel the genjutsu he was under and discovered he was only faking so he wouldn't have to do anything. What are you guys doing here? Naruto demanded. I didn't think village destroying was your style. It's not, Kisame agreed. But nothing wrong with having a little fun while on a Jinchuriki hunt, is there? Our sources say that you are one of our targets, little boy, Sasori said from inside his puppet armor. Namikaze Naruto, host of the Kyuubi, correct. Naruto glared defiantly. Just try it. Oh, we intend to, Kisame chuckled. He stabbed the ground suddenly with his sword. I hate snakes, he said by way of explanation. They remind me of that snake. What is this? Guy asked, appearing on the scene by way of kicking Kisame in the head. 3 members of the fiendish and most unyouthful group that Orochimaru belonged to are ganging up on my most hip rival and his youthful students. I'm not your rival, Kakashi insisted, but, as per usual, Guy seemed not to hear him. Excessive youth really did seem to give you selective hearing. Kisame climbed to his feet. And what the hell was that? You come out of nowhere and kick me in the head. Isn't that unyouthful or whatever? No, Guy said cheerfully. That's my way of saying that I will youthfully take you on to give my comrades a better chance. Be careful, Sakura cautioned. His sword absorbs chakra. Guy instantly reverted to his trademark good guy pose. Then it is a good thing that I intend to get through this fight using only taijutsu. You see, Lee? This is a perfect example of when it is not only possible but in fact comes in handy to not rely on chakra when you fight. Yes, Guy-sensei, Lee cheered from some trees a good way off. The other genin who were left with Guy were standing with him. And stay out of the way, Guy added. It would be most unyouthful if one of you were to be injured in this most youthful fight. Fine by me, Shikamaru agreed, sounding almost pleased. This whole invasion is far too troublesome for my tastes anyway. Witnesses, Sasuke muttered, looking murderous. Of all the times for us to have witnesses, they pick now to show up. At least we don't have to fight Kisame, whispered Naruto. I think I only fought Kisame once and got my ass kicked while Guy defeated him twice. Besides, what do you want him to do? Take his fight and his charges and out of hearing range. That would be nice, Sasuke nodded. Yes, that is exactly what I want. That's really too bad, Sakura told them flatly. You couldn't actually provide a decent excuse and I refuse to let you sink low enough as to tell him this spot is unyouthful. Alright, Kakashi said loudly to get their attention before dropping his voice back down to let's not let our enemies hear everything we're doing levels. Naruto and I have fought Kakuzu before and Sakura has bested Sasori. I know you had Cho with you last time and, as his grandmother, was bound to be a great help but at least you'll have Sasuke with you. Can I trade him for Naruto? Sakura asked immediately. What? Why would you want Naruto? Sasuke demanded indignantly. Sorry, Sakura, Kakashi apologized. We kind of need Naruto against Kakuzu because of his upgraded Raiznan. Not to mention my debilitating fear of puppets, Naruto chimed in. Don't tell me you've forgotten about that already. Then can I switch? Sakura changed tactics. Or, you know, I might be able to do this alone oh come on, Sasuke said impatiently, rolling his eyes as he dragged his teammate off to face Sasori. So you two are my opponents, huh? Kakuzu asked rhetorically. Hey Kakashi, I haven't checked but I'm willing to bet that you have a huge bounty on you. I look forward to collecting it. And you, Jinchuriki, try not to make me kill you because otherwise our leader will be most displeased. You, Sasori, Kisame, Orochimaru, Tobi. Kakashi listed off. That's at least 5 members of the Akatsuki here today. You can't possibly all be here for Naruto. No, Kakuzu admitted. Tobi really wanted to come and there was no persuading him otherwise. God, I hate him. Kisame called over, looking up from his valiant attempt to behead Guy. It's like he doesn't have an off switch, I swear. Why couldn't I have a quiet partner? I shouldn't be the stoic all the time, it's not natural. It's because you are so unyouthful, Guy explained as landed a well-placed kick on Kisame's chest and sent him flying. And this whole thing was Orochimaru's doing so Sasori had to come, Kakuzu admitted. And I am here because there was a rumor that Shikaku was here as well. Know anything about that? Not a thing, Naruto lied. And trust me, I'd know. I have Jinchuriki senses. If you all seem to have partners, where's yours? Kakashi asked, looking around warily for Haiden. Kakuzu shrugged. Damn kid wouldn't shut up so I killed him about 20 minutes ago. Let me tell you, Tobi is so lucky he our leader won't let him be alone with me under any circumstances. He stiffened suddenly as a Reikari-infused punch went straight through him. What? Yeah, I am that awesome, Kakashi said triumphantly before dispersing. The real Kakashi was standing behind Kakuzu with his arm through the ancient missing nin's chest. Kakuzu waited until Kakashi removed his invasive appendage before saying with a smirk, you really think it will be that easy to defeat me? I wouldn't have made it nearly this long if it were. Maybe that isn't enough to kill you, Kakashi agreed. But if landing really should be lethal blows is that easy this won't take long. You won't get the element of surprise twice, Kakashi, Kakuzu promised. He ripped off his Akatsuki cloak and unceremoniously threw it to the side. You may have broken one of my masks, but I've still got 3 more just waiting to tear you apart. He closed his eyes and groaned. Having trouble over there? Naruto asked politely. No, I think I'm doing fine, Kakuzu replied. You won't be, though. At that, 4 hairy masked creatures burst forth from his back and landed behind him. The one that Kakashi had hit promptly fell over and died, but the other 3 looked quite impressive, if a little gross. One of the masks opened its mouth and a beam of blue at Naruto, who quickly jumped out of the way. A second mask fired yellow at Naruto the moment he landed and it hit him head-on. Ow, he complained. Hey, what's with the extra hating on me? Kakashi's the one who broke your stupid mask monster. You can take more damage than I can, Kakashi pointed out. That doesn't mean I want to, Naruto returned. The red mask took that moment to fire a burst of red a few feet in front of it. The red, of course, turned into fire that raged quickly in Kakashi's direction. Thank you so much for that, Naruto, Kakashi said dryly as he rushed to escape the flames. Hey, don't look at me. Kakuzu did it. Naruto defended. You gave him the idea, Kakashi accused. Naruto crossed his arms. Oh please, he's a missing nin that's practically as old as Madara. I'm sure he's picked up a few good killing people idea on his own. You know, before I was even born. We still have to destroy 4 more hearts before we kill him, Kakashi reminded Naruto. I'll do what I can with Reikari and then you need to handle the rest, but you can't slip into Sage mode, so be careful. I will, Naruto nodded. But why do we have to take out his hearts? Why can't we just destroy his lungs or his brain or something? I'm pretty sure he only has 1 brain. That might actually be a plan, Kakashi said, sounding surprised. He glanced quickly at Kakuzu. I don't think he heard us, which is good, or that would never work. Since you've just been sitting here watching and are far better with Kage Buushin than I could ever hope to be, I'll continue playing by his rules and you try and use a clone or 2 to sneak up behind him and blow his head off. Okay, Naruto nodded. It would be really helpful if you could make sure that he was looking in the opposite direction so he can't see what I'm doing in his peripheral vision, and I'll make sure to mask my clone's chakra. Make sure you aim for the brain, Kakashi ordered. He may have more lungs on him and you're living proof that a destroyed lung is not necessarily a death sentence. And you have to destroy the brain, not just remove his head, because if the stitches on his neck are any indication, he's been there, done that, and came through just fine. Kakashi shined over to behind Kakuzu. Don't tell me you've fallen asleep on me. Seriously, I know you're old and full of old pride or whatever, but when you can't stay awake for your matches and those matches don't involve Shikamaru, it's really time to consider retirement. Kakuzu sensibly spun around to avoid having yet another heart destroyed. I'm torn between tearing out your still beating heart to replace the one you stole and just killing you now. Do you have any preferences? Kakashi shrugged. Not really, but it doesn't matter because you're not going to kill me. Are you so certain? Kakuzu taunted as another tower of fire came hurtling Kakashi's way. Kakashi jumped back and used a Suten Sei Jinheki to try and calm the flames. No go, he murmured. Must have been combined with wind. Thread shot out of Kakuzu's arm and wrapped tightly around Kakashi's leg, pulling him to the ground. Well, this is awkward, Kakashi noted as Kakuzu stood over him. I've decided, Kakuzu announced. Your heart is mine now. He stopped suddenly when he felt 2 hands grab the back of his head. Naruto released his Senjutsu Raisin Rangan at point-blank range. The 3 remaining mask monsters jerked and fell over unmoving, and Kakuzu himself was missing the top third of his body. I think I got him, Naruto said with a smirk. Damn it, Naruto. I was right there, Kakashi complained as he pushed himself to his feet. Seriously, I could have been killed. And what did I tell you about using Sage mode? Sorry, Naruto apologized, allowing himself to exit Sage mode. But I wasn't sure the Raisin would be powerful enough, and the Futon Raisin Shuriken is too loud. He would have been on the alert and I may not have been able to hit him. But now people will be able to sense you used that chakra, and if nobody else, Jiraiya is going to realize what that means and have a lot of questions for you about how you managed that without going to see the toads, Kakashi pointed out. You know, considering I just saved your life, you could be a little more grateful, Naruto sniffed. Kakashi rolled his eyes. I could have handled it. And now we have to deal with telling people about us. So, Naruto shrugged. We probably should have from the beginning. Kakashi sighed. You and the others can claim you were taking your cues from me, but I have to explain why I couldn't be bothered explaining this for the last 15 years. Sucks to be you, Naruto said flippantly. Your empathy is touching, Kakashi said sarcastically. I do try, Naruto said modestly. But really, how bad could it be? Who do we have to tell? Jiraiya, of course, Kakashi said. Because he'll be able to tell something's wrong from the Sage Chakra. He'll insist on telling Minato, so that's 2. Who are we telling what? Sakura asked, bounding over to him followed by Sasuke. Naruto used Sage Chakra, so now we have to come clean to, at the very least, Jiraiya and Minato, Kakashi summarized. You're an idiot, Sasuke said bluntly. I thought you weren't going to use that. I wasn't, Naruto admitted. But it seemed like the most efficient plan. But now we've got to tell people, Sakura grumbled, running a hand through her. Chapter 32 Disclaimer, I do not own Naruto. Note, some people were questioning whether Anko really needed to find out about the time traveling. It was all well and good not to tell her when they weren't telling anyone, but Kakashi is going to marry her and soon. Likewise, if Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura ever get really serious about someone outside of Team 7, they'll come clean, too. After all, relationships really shouldn't have such huge secrets as going back in time if it can be avoided, and Team 7's only reason for not telling is they were having more fun with it a secret. And remember, the reason Danzo's not running around causing havoc is because Sasuke killed him way back in Chapter 3. So you both have finished your most youthful matches? Guy asked, approaching them, followed by his protege. Did either of you capture your opponent or were you forced to kill them? Kakuzu was an incredibly dangerous foe with a penchant for stealing hearts, so we decided it was best to simply kill him, Kakashi replied. Not to mention it's kind of hard not to kill someone with the Rasengan, Naruto added. And if we were to try, it would have involved a lot of unnecessary attacks on poor, disturbing mass creatures. We might have tried to capture Sasori alive, Sakura said. But it was difficult to get near him due to his use of highly potent poison, and so Sasuke eventually just used Amaterasu on him. To be fair, Sasuke defended. He was apparently an actual puppet and I had no way of knowing that. Oh, was he? Naruto asked, shivering. Good thing I fought Mask Guy instead then. The last thing this world needs is sentient puppets. He paused. Well, the second last thing. The actual last thing we need is more revenge-obsessed morons, but that goes without saying, right Sasuke? I quite agree, Sasuke said with a nod. Morons ruin everything. I was more talking about the vengeance part, Naruto corrected. You know, given that you were using the freaking Amaterasu, I think it would have burned him alive even if he hadn't turned himself into a puppet, Sakura pointed out. But he wasn't, so I didn't, Sasuke countered. How did your fight go, Guy? Kakashi inquired, hoping to forestall an argument about semantics. It was most youthful, Guy answered, as if it could have possibly been anything else. He seemed a little unsure of what to do since his sword could not absorb the chakra I was not using, and he ended up summoning a lake in the middle of our battle, but my youthfulness carried the day and I knocked him out and tied him up. I have never been so inspired before in my life, Lee exclaimed. I now see beyond a shadow of a doubt that working without chakra is not only possible, but can be an advantage. It all depends on how hard you work, Guy agreed. And I know you, my adorable student, will work harder than anyone. Turning back to Kakashi, he continued, since the other two are dead, Hokage-sama can have Kisame interrogated after this is all over. Good plan, Kakashi replied. Now, let's go finish ridding the village of Oto Shinobi. Naruto, Minato called upon seeing his son. The invasion was over and the ninja that were not too gravely injured were meeting back in the ruins of the stadium. Hey, Dad, Naruto greeted with a grin. The rest of his team was standing back a few feet, trying to pretend they weren't eavesdropping. Did you kill the bad guy? I did, Minato acknowledged. And unlike most cases, this time I can objectively and diplomatically declare him the bad guy. Yeah, Sasuke really wanted to go fight him once Kakashi said you were facing Madara, who apparently hated his family and abandoned them a long time ago. We wouldn't let him, though, Naruto informed him, hoping his father wouldn't ask about his hesitation. Minato, who had been glaring at Kakashi for even mentioning that much, relaxed. That's good. He was a very dangerous opponent and Sasuke would have just ended up getting hurt. We had our own problems to deal with anyway, Naruto continued. Guy was fighting a sushi man, Sasuke and Sakura took out a possessed puppet, and Kakashi and I killed some mask guy who said he fought the Shode. Apparently they were Orochimaru's friends that secretly hated him. What? Minato exclaimed, bending down to check his son for injuries. You're not hurt, are you? Naruto dutifully withstood the examination with barely an exasperated eye roll. No, I'm fine. Kakashi made me stay back while he did all the fighting because apparently it was dangerous and he didn't want to get lectured to death about the unyouthfulness of irresponsibility or some other such nonsense. That was okay, though, because then I got to sneak up behind him and blow his head off with my version of the Rasengan. Minato looked a little alarmed at that. You literally blew someone's head off? You're only a genin. Well, technically it was more like the upper third of his body, but it's really the same thing, Naruto admitted. And hopefully my genin status will be short-lived or else I swear to God I'm running away to Suna. Are you threatening me to get a promotion? Minato asked incredulously and a bit worriedly. Because you know the last thing I want to do is have you killed, but genin can't really go wandering off by themselves. It's not a threat, Naruto assured his father. It's just the only appropriate response to the prospect of a year of springtime of youth. Sakura and Sasuke would probably agree to come with me if it comes to that. Sasuke's always more than up for a change of scenery anyway. We'll deal with your lack of promotion if it comes to that, Minato promised. In the meantime, don't even think of leaving. And are Sasuke and Sakura okay? Oh, yeah, they're fine. In fact, Naruto confided. I heard Sasuke complimenting Sakura on her one-hit puppet destroying. I should probably say something about that, too, because the two of them really did the world a favor tonight. Minato sighed and shook his head. We have got to look into getting you therapy for this puppet issue of yours. Or maybe Obito could talk to you about it. Are you sure that's necessary? Naruto asked, really not looking forward to the prospect of seeing a therapist now that his problems had mostly resolved themselves. I mean, after what happened with that Sasori guy, I feel totally vindicated. We'll talk about it later. For now, I've got to have a quick meeting with the daimyo and the other judges before they leave to see who gets promoted. Hopefully, even though we didn't get a chance to finish the exam, we got through enough that there will be at least one brand new Chuunin. After that, I've got to organize the rebuilding, so you may be off the hook for a while, Minato told him. Oh, Minato-sensei, Kakashi said, giving up any pretense of not having been paying attention to their conversation. I still have that recommendation sheet Orochimaru gave me earlier. Do you want that? Minato blinked. I'd actually completely forgotten about that. I can see why he'd give it to you before Sasuke and Gaara's match, but why would he even write one out if he was trying to kill me? Maybe it was a contingency plan in case he lost. Considering he had to sit through all those matches, maybe he wanted to get at least something out of it, Kakashi suggested. So do you want it or should I just keep using it as a bookmark? We may as well take it into consideration given that while he was not actually Kazekage, he was the leader of Oto, which has been recognized as legitimate enough to send candidates, Minato decided. And honestly, I'm a little curious as to who he thought should make the cut. Is there anything else, Minato-sensei? Kakashi asked. Just one more thing, do you have any reservations about your team getting promoted? Minato inquired. I understand if you have any reservations about telling me you think your students are insane in front of them, so if you want to let me know later that's fine. On the contrary, Kakashi lied through his teeth. I have never before met such happy, well-adjusted individuals. Thank you so much for that Naruto, Kakashi said sarcastically once Team 7 was alone. They had, naturally, decided to forego helping to deal with the aftermath of the invasion until they got a chance to compare notes and were sitting in the middle of their old training ground, which was mercifully unmarred by the invasion. Don't mention it, anyone who's not a revenge-obsessed idiot would have done the same, Naruto replied automatically. But, what did I do? You told your father that I told you about Madara, Kakashi reminded him. Yeah, that was kind of a bad idea, Sakura agreed. I kept waiting for you to shut up but I couldn't do anything as I was too far away to hit you and I couldn't say anything because I couldn't explain and don't want them to think we're not fit to pass the MSR. We're probably not, Sasuke spoke up. Don't say that, Naruto cried out. We'll pass it and we'll avoid guys training, believe it, do you? Sasuke challenged. Well, you see. Naruto hedged. If he did he probably wouldn't have threatened to run away from home, Sakura pointed out. Do you think that will negatively affect us? Sasuke wondered aloud. I didn't threaten it, exactly, Naruto corrected. And I hope not. It's kind of meant to have the opposite effect. And it's a hyperbole, right Naruto? Kakashi asked. Silence. Right, Naruto, Kakashi repeated, louder this time. Because if you leave and your father kills me, I am so going to plague your dreams with visions of me eating ramen and not letting you have any for the rest of your life. I'm already not on his good side for telling you about Madara. You can always come with me, Naruto offered with a weak smile. And I forgot we weren't supposed to know about him yet. I kind of panicked when I realized that even if you did mention him, Sasuke would need a reason to want to go looking for him. Especially since I don't have a reputation of wanting to complete my family massacre like I had last time, Sasuke agreed. And I fully acknowledge that there are better times and places than a high-profile fight in the middle of an invasion for a family reunion. So what even happened? You said something about Itachi sealing Orochimaru away forever, Sakura asked curiously. Oh, right. Well, Orochimaru gave me a list of names for who he thought should make Chunin-Kakashi began. Are we on there? Naruto interrupted. Kakashi shot him an annoyed look. I don't know, I didn't read it. Well you should have, Naruto muttered, crossing his arms. Given I managed to beat him, I probably made the list, Sasuke declared confidently. Sakura rolled her eyes. Given that he's in love with you, you probably are the list. Careful, Sakura, Sasuke cautioned. You sound jealous. Of you, Sakura made a face. I'd rather date Ino. That wasn't quite what I meant, Sasuke replied. Although it is a nice thought, Naruto said dreamily. The only reason I'm not smacking you for being a pervert is because I was the one brought it up, Sakura informed him matter-of-factly. Duly noted, Naruto gulped. If you guys are quite finished, Kakashi said quickly, then I could tell you how Orochimaru was indeed pretending to be the Kazekage and summon Minato-sensei's predecessors. Fortunately, Minato-sensei managed to do something to stop the Shode from returning but he still had to face the Nidaime and the Sandaime Dash who you killed, Team 7 in tone together. Kakashi's eyes crinkled excitedly and he whipped out his book. I thought you might say that, which is why I brought this. You brought porn to show us that you didn't kill the Sandaime. Sakura was decidedly unimpressed. No, Kakashi shook his head and flipped to the back cover. Read this. I, Sarutobi Hiruzen, being of relatively sound mind though a makeshift body, do hereby absolve Heite Kakashi from all possible guilt in my death. Without his information, I may still be among the living but my successor would not be and I made my own decisions. Although I still don't see why this is so important that we need to do this now, Sakura dutifully read. And for that matter, neither do I. You did what? Naruto couldn't believe it. And Orochimaru just let you do it. Kakashi shrugged. He seemed confused but pretty apathetic about the whole thing, actually. You realize that this changes nothing, right? Sasuke asked him seriously. What? Kakashi cried out. Come on, I got a dead guy to give written proof that he doesn't hold me accountable. What more do you want? The Sandaime was brought back to life by the Orochimaru's Kukios Edo Tensei, which could very well have unintentional side effects like skewed judgment, Sasuke answered. And even if it doesn't, you could have forged his handwriting. Or maybe he's just trying to appease your guilt. Or it could be that since he doesn't actually know that you're from a different timeline where he died today, he doesn't appreciate just how much his death is your entire fault. All of those are excellent suggestions, Sasuke. Sakura smiled. I think I'm partial to the last one. Naruto nodded. Me too. Kakashi hung his head. I pull off the impossible and it's still not good enough for you people. It's your own damn fault for telling us that you're the reason my father is alive and old man Hokage isn't, Naruto told him unsympathetically. If you had said something about how either Obito or Rin did something then things would be different. Then you wouldn't keep accusing me of killing him, Kakashi asked hopefully. Oh no, we still would, Sakura corrected. But it would be inadvertent then. Less murder and more manslaughter, if you will. I hate you all, Kakashi said flatly. Yes, Naruto said impatiently. We're horrible people for holding you accountable for your actions. I know, Kakashi nodded. Especially since you never hold anything Sasuke does against him. That's because Uchiha are immune from the consequences of their actions, Sasuke explained. Unless, of course, the person dealing the consequences is another Uchiha. Ain't that the truth, Sakura muttered. But seriously, get on with it. Alright, Kakashi agreed reluctantly. Minato took on the Night Aim and Sand Aim and managed to seal them away via Shadow Clone sacrificing while Itachi used Susanoo on Orochimaru and I was distracting Orochimaru's sword. You mean this sword? Sasuke asked, holding up Orochimaru's Kusanagi sword. When did you take that? Kakashi demanded. A while ago, Sasuke replied unhelpfully. Why? Kakashi pressed. Sasuke shrugged. Suijutsu got me into the habit of sword collecting, he said by way of explanation. Subscribe to Infinite Novel for more adventure. Chapter 33 Disclaimer: I do not own Naruto. Note, as for Sasuke beating Gaara, well, he did. Although admittedly, like with many of his fights, there were extenuating circumstances. Namely, Sasuke's refusal to acknowledge the invasion until he was declared the winner and Gaara's enemy clarification issues. 3 days after the invasion, the results of the exams were finally ready and so the Chuunin hopefuls and their sensei were gathered in Minato's office, which had not suffered any extensive damage and had quickly been repaired. Why are we all being called in here? Sakura whispered. There was a ceremony after I made Chuunin with Koji and Ino, granted, but after the original invasion I was with Shikamaru when he got the news. Basically, one of the Chuunin who worked at the Hokage Tower just threw a vest at him, congratulated him, and left. I'm sure they didn't just throw it at him, Naruto said skeptically. He had a lot of faith in the ninja he wanted to someday rule of govern, but he knew that Sakura would know better than anyone else since it never actually happened to anyone who hadn't been time traveling. Sasuke and Kakashi had been made comatose by Itachi, and he himself was off trying to convince Tsunade to come back and take up the mantle of Hokage. He decided it was too troublesome to duck and the zipper caught him in the forehead and left a red mark for days, Sakura informed him. Although he later said he should have just gotten out of the way because having to explain to everyone why he had a zipper-shaped indentation on his head was even more troublesome. Last time they probably kept things more low-key because the Sand Aim was dead. Itachi snuck back into Kana and managed to have a nice lunch and do God knows what else before being detected and then took on 3 Jounin at once and won, and Kakashi and I were in the hospital, Sasuke answered. Besides, Suna's change of heart means there was a lot less damage done than could have been. I know that they were in the exam and all, but why are they even here? Kiba demanded loudly, pointing at Temari, Beiki, and Gaara. Why do you ask me such questions? Shino complained. You just answered it yourself. But they betrayed us by allying with that one snake guy and helped to invade. Kiba cried. Yeah, for about 2 minutes, Temari scoffed. Then we realized that we, too, had been betrayed and helped save your precious Konoha. It's still weird, Kiba insisted, crossing his arms. Oh, you have no idea, she said, unconsciously eyeing her little brother. You know, when I first entered this exam I thought it would be a good opportunity to test my power of youth and hard work against the plethora of geniuses that were also in the exam and I believed I was excited, Lee confided. But now I see that I was absolutely apathetic compared to how excited I am now. I must confess, I never truly believed an S-class missing nin could be brought down by taijutsu alone. I will never doubt again. Oh great, Niji groaned. Just what he needed. More enthusiasm. If Tenten weren't on my team, I would seriously consider joining Umbu, I really would. Lee, my adorable pupil. That's the spirit, Guy called out, overwhelmed, tears running down his cheeks. Kakashi coughed to get Guy's attention without actually having to touch his fellow Jounin sensei lest the other man take that as a cue to initiate a bonding session. Maybe you should save the encouragements for after the results. He'll either be very happy or very disappointed in either way, you should save all your youth for that. Excellent idea, my most hip rival, Guy beamed. I've been meaning to ask, though, did you see whatever became of Kisame's sword? Ibiki thought it might come in handy during the interrogation. His sword, Kakashi repeated innocently. No, I haven't seen it. Is it missing or something? So you're telling me that Shikamaru has designed a foolproof plan to get out of doing any more D-rank missions and you intend to use it right after things get back to normal around here? Kurane asked enviously. Trying to sound casual, she continued, well, don't hold out on me. Sorry, Kurane Asuma apologized, not sounding very sorry at all. But it will only work the once and Shikamaru barely felt it was worth his time to come up with one plan to get Team 10 out of it. I don't even want to know what it would take to get him to come up with another one, although you are, of course, welcome to try. Why do you want to know about real estate in Konoha? Beiki asked, confused and a bit apprehensive. Gaara had always been strange but before they had left Suna at least he'd been fairly predictable. I am attempting to broaden my horizons, Gaara replied shortly, his plans of purchasing a vacation home left unmentioned. His fellow Suna shinobi were already concerned about his fondness for Konoha so no sense worrying them until it was too late for them to interfere. Why do I even need to be here? Shikamaru wondered. It's so troublesome. Couldn't someone have just given the vest to Asuma or something? Given your sensei's concern over me violently attacking you and your teammates, I feel obliged to warn you that if you make Chuunin with that attitude and I don't, we will have problems, Temari warned. Violent ones, I presume, Shikamaru yawned. How troublesome. There was a flash of yellow which heralded the arrival of the Hokage. Sorry I'm late, he apologized. I had to assure some concerned citizens that there was very little chance that Orochimaru has some leftover summons running around and therefore it is quite unnecessary to kill them all. While I myself have never been fond of snakes and can understand the desire to see them gone, who knows what kind of ecological issues it would cause in the future. Minato took a deep breath and pulled an envelope out of a pocket on his vest. Is everyone ready to hear the results? Various murmurs of assent confirmed that they were. As Minato took the paper that presumably held the names of the new Chunin out of the envelope and unfolded it, he said, "Now remember, every one of you showed very clearly that you have the potential to one day achieve Chunin even if you do not achieve it here today, so my advice to you is to not give up, train hard, and work through some of your personal issues. I promise I will convince you that fate does not control your life if it is the last thing I do, Niji," Lee vowed. Niji closed his eyes tightly but did not respond. "First, from Suna, I am pleased to say that both Temari and Gaara have qualified to be Chunin," Minato began. "Kankuro's going to kill us," Temari grinned. "He can try," Gaara replied succinctly. "He should have taken his match more seriously anyway," Beiki noted. "Perhaps this will convince him to do so in the future. Underestimating opponents is the fastest way to get killed during a fight." From Team 9, Lee has advanced to Chunin, Minato continued. Team 9, Naruto echoed, puzzled. "I thought they were Team Guy." Sakura rolled her eyes. "It's like how they started calling up Team Kakashi when we reformed our team. I've never heard them called Team 9 before, but I guess they had to have been assigned a number, and the fact that a Team 9 was active would explain why we had a Team 7, Team 8, and a Team 10 in our graduating class. And does it even matter anyway?" Sasuke cut in. "Well, no," Naruto conceded. "But since when has a lack of relevance ever stopped me?" Lee, meanwhile, was crying. I passed." "You did it, Lee," Guy cheered. "The flames of your youth are burning brightly indeed." He stopped as he remembered he had another student in the room that did not pass. "I'm sure you'll make it next time, Niji. You are very talented." Niji didn't look at him. Sakura and Naruto flinched. "Oh god, do you think you got him over his fate issues just to develop a bad case of Sasukeism?" Naruto asked frantically. Sasuke raised an eyebrow. "Sasukeism?" Naruto nodded. "Yeah, you know, a refusal to talk combined with a deep and abiding hatred for happy people and an insatiable appetite for vengeance." Sasuke rolled his eyes and hoped Naruto didn't actually use that term on a regular basis. Then again, knowing Naruto, who knew? He even names his insistence on counseling his opponents. What does Niji have to seek vengeance for anyway? Didn't Kakashi say that one relative of his he had been angsting about? "Oh, I don't know," Sakura deadpanned. Being born into the branch clan, having Guy and Lee on his team, being subservient to Hinata because his father was born a few minutes after his uncle, his father might not be dead, but I can think of a few reasons he might have issues. From Team 10, Shikamaru is now a Chunin, Minato pressed on despite the frequent interruptions from people who couldn't wait until he got through 8 candidates. "I did," Shikamaru asked. "Does that mean I'm going to have to do anything? Because if it is, then no thanks." "You can't turn it down," Temari insisted. "Honestly, why are you even a shinobi? I thought it would be less troublesome than being a civilian," Shikamaru replied. "Although now I suspect I may have been mistaken, all those years at the academy when I refused to graduate early were excellent for napping and cloud watching. I'm actually starting to feel sorry for that one girl I beat," Temari remarked. "She was on your team, wasn't she?" "Don't bother," Shikamaru replied, inclining his head slightly to confirm that Ino was indeed on his team. "She's still seeking vengeance." "I know," Temari said grimly. "She's tried to jump me twice since the invasion. It's really a good thing Sakura's such a good medic. Or maybe not so good as once she's fine she starts looking for me again." "Oh thank God," Asuma cried out. "After all the problems this exam has caused, I don't know how I would have talked him into taking another one." From Team 8, Kiba and Shino have moved up to Chunin, Minato announced. "That is so awesome," Kiba exclaimed. He stopped as something important occurred to him. "Wait, does Akamara get promoted, too?" Minato looked taken aback. "I suppose so. Is your dog actually a shinobi?" "He scored better than half the class on the graduating exam," Kiba said defensively. "And no, there's really no point asking why he even took it because I don't know. He just wanted to." "This is good news indeed," Shino declared. "Okay, all this waiting around is killing me," Sasuke muttered. "If Kiba passed and I didn't, I'm joining you on your trip to Suna, Naruto." And finally, from Team 7, Sasuke, Sakura, and Naruto all passed, Minato concluded. "Tsunade owes me 500 Ryo," Kakashi cheered. "And I've officially trained the most talented team since the sun in themselves." "Well, at least Tsunade's winning streak is broken," Kurane commented. "Last time she won we got invaded. I guess we don't need to run away to Suna after all," Naruto said, pretending to be put out. "You were planning on going to Suna if you didn't make Chunin?" Gaara asked, wide-eyed. "Kind of," Naruto admitted. "But don't worry, we'll still come visit." "That's really not necessary," Temari told him with a slight wince. "But if you insist, make sure not to bring Shikamaru with you. He won't agree to make the trip until his hormones demand it," Naruto said cheerfully. "Hopefully it will go better than our first trip to Suna," Sakura said, crossing her fingers. "From what I've heard, it would almost have to," Sasuke remarked. "Have I ever told you that you're the best sensei that's ever lived?" Kakashi asked later that afternoon when it was just the two of them in Minato's office. Because either way, I feel it would be remiss of me not to mention it again. You might have a few times since you made Jounin, Minato told him, sounding distinctly amused. Increasingly often since Naruto was born. Well, it's still true, Kakashi declared. So why not say it? You're just pleased that all of your students made Chuunin, which hasn't happened in over 40 years, Minato accused. Kakashi shrugged. Maybe. I had hoped it would happen, but things got a little dicey towards the end, what, with the invasion and all. Who did Orochimaru end up picking? Or was his note something else entirely? Minato shook his head. No, he did what he said he would and gave his recommendations. The first name on his list took up half the page, which was Sasuke's. That's a bit concerning, but I think it was just because of his interest in the Sharingan. He also wanted Neji to pass because he is skilled with the Byakugan, Naruto and Gaara to pass because they are Jinchuriki, and Sakura to pass because she held her own against two very powerful Jujutsu wielders. So basically, Orochimaru wanted me to achieve the same reputation as a teacher as the professor. Kakashi summarized. Maybe we misjudged him. Minato snorted. I doubt it. Normally we don't have so many people pass, but as I've said from the beginning, this was a very exceptionally talented bunch. I just hope it doesn't cause problems that 7 of the 8 candidates made it through but not Neji. I don't want Hayashi in here complaining I'm being biased. I'm sure he's grateful enough that Neji shut up about fate for 2 seconds to overlook the Chapter 34 Disclaimer. I do not own Naruto. Note, I've read a lot of time travel stories and usually people want the time traveler to spill the beans, but most people seem to think it's a bad idea here. Something about that ruining all of Team 7's fun. I happen to agree, which is why it's not happening until near the end of the story, but it just goes to show, doesn't it? The next day, Minato, Anko, Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Itachi were all waiting in Minato's office for whatever incredibly important and mildly top-secret news Team 7 had for them. Sakura, Sasuke, and Naruto were pacing outside of the office and Kakashi hadn't shown up yet, although they really weren't sure if that was just a regression into his old tardiness or an attempt to avoid having to partake in the long-overdue secret telling. The newly promoted Chuunin were shamelessly eavesdropping to see if any of the 5 they felt really should know their secret had any idea what they were about to tell them, but as of yet it didn't appear that they did. So I heard you lost a bet to Kakashi about whether or not his whole team would pass, Jiraiya was saying. Whatever happened to all of that of faith in your students you were on my case about earlier? I have plenty of faith in Sakura, Tsunade replied. And in Naruto, for that matter. He's such a determined and hard-working individual. That he is, Minato smiled fondly. He's really a good kid. So you don't have faith in Sasuke? Itachi inquired, staring straight at the slug princess. It's nothing personal, Tsunade explained. I've met the kid and he seems decent enough and Naruto and Sakura really seem to like him. It's just, something about him just screams vengeance will be mine and that is rather unsettling. He was rather pro-vengeance after the massacre, Anko mused, but then a year or so ago he seemed to decide against it, or at least decided to keep quiet about it. Too bad. Too bad? Itachi repeated, raising an eyebrow. You think this is a bad thing? Anko shook her head. Not exactly. It's probably better for him and will leave him happier and saner in the long run. But I kind of miss those discussions we used to have. Those mildly disturbing ones where you would describe, in great detail, all the ways you wanted to torture Orochimaru before killing him? Itachi asked. Anko smiled nostalgically. Yeah, those were the days. You probably don't want to hear this, but your brother actually had some very creative ideas on the subject. You're right, I'd rather not hear about it, Itachi said shortly. You're the one who got vengeance in the end, though, Anko noted wistfully. Itachi looked surprised. Vengeance? Anko nodded. By sealing him away forever, which is probably the best you could have done given his long-held interest in cheating death, you got vengeance for me, for Sasuke, for everyone he's experimented on and killed, and for yourself. I have never sought vengeance, Itachi told her. And yet you got it anyway, Anko replied with a shrug. Lucky bastard. Kakashi had apparently felt he'd made them wait long enough as he chose that moment to stroll casually towards the Hokage's office. So, he asked cheerfully, how did it go? We didn't actually get around to telling them yet, Naruto told him bluntly. Seeing as the whole reason we're in this situation is because of you, we thought it would be only right to wait for you, Sasuke added. And you'll probably want a chance to tell your side of the story, too, Sakura told him. Because if it's just up to us, you might need to steal Naruto's idea and head straight to Suna. You what? Kakashi demanded, looking horrified. Well, in that case, good luck and I'll be back in 20 minutes. Not happening, Sasuke said firmly. He pushed open the door as Naruto and Sakura pushed their teacher through. So nice of you to join us, Kakashi, Minato said dryly. And only 2.5 hours late, too. I severely underestimated my students' patience, Kakashi said by way of explanation. So what is it you wanted to tell us? Jiraiya wanted to know. Does it have anything to do with how Naruto knows Senjutsu when I know you don't know it? And why are you only telling us? Tsunade asked. Minato looked stunned. Naruto knows Senjutsu? Since when? Jiraiya shrugged. I don't know, but he was using it the night of the invasion. I take it that means you didn't know. I can answer all of your questions, Kakashi promised. Glaring at his team, he continued, frankly, I'd rather someone else did, but as I seem to be out of options, answer me this, do any of you believe in time travel? No, Tsunade answered immediately. No, Jiraiya agreed. No, Minato said. No, Itachi concurred. No, Anko finished off the denials. Well, I do, Kakashi stated. I believe in time travel. I didn't used to, but then I found a time-traveling scroll 4 years from now and got Naruto to power it, and so here we are. You're saying you time-traveled? Tsunade repeated. I am not nearly drunk enough to be having this conversation. Neither are you, for that matter. Does that mean that Naruto also came with you? Minato asked. Where did you come back to? Not just Naruto, Kakashi replied. But Sasuke and Sakura, too. I'm still not sure I believe you, Anko told him. If things were so dire that you had to time travel, then why didn't you tell anyone about this beforehand? Even if you wanted to keep it a secret, you should have at least told the Hokage. Unless he already did? She looked to Minato for confirmation. Minato shook his head. This is the first I'm hearing of it. Not to mention that they are awfully cavalier for having the world destroyed. We never said that the world was destroyed, Sakura spoke up. Actually, when things settled down, they were pretty okay, although everything was a mess for a few years. If everything was okay, then why in the world would you have time traveled? Jiraiya demanded. We were unsatisfied with our lives, Sasuke replied. Well, except for Sakura. We're not really sure why she wanted to go. I told you, I wasn't about to be left behind again, Sakura said fiercely. You were always leaving me behind. Say we believe you, Itachi addressed Kakashi. We can work out whether we actually do or not later. If your story is true and the future was fine, what did you come back to change? I can only speak for myself, Kakashi began. I came back the day or so after I made Jounin. That far back? Anko's eyes widened. That means you're, what, 10 years old than me? Mentally, perhaps, Kakashi allowed. Is that going to be a problem? It would have been nice to know, Anko said honestly. Which is why I'm telling you now, Kakashi replied. Minato-sensei went off to help our forces on the front lines and tasked us with destroying some bridge. I don't even remember what it was called. Rin was captured by the enemy and Obito wanted to go back for her. I did not. That was years ago, Minato said gently. She forgave you a long time ago for your hesitation and you came through for her in the end. Kakashi swallowed. This time. Before, I wouldn't listen. I was stupid and arrogant and refused to consider the possibility that Obito was right, that anything could be more important than the mission. I didn't want to end up like my father, so I let Obito go off alone. I did change my mind, eventually, and caught up with him. He looked almost like he was desperate for them to believe him. I'm sure you were, Minato assured him. What happened then? What went wrong? Right as I got there, someone snuck up behind Obito. I saved him, but it cost me my eye, Kakashi continued, unconsciously touching the eye he should have lost that day. Obito and I went in anyway and rescued Rin. Our teamwork was better than it had ever been, but, on our way out, there was a boulder. I wasn't paying attention to the enemy we had downed but not killed, and I should have been. That boulder should have crushed me. It didn't. That sounds like a good thing, Tsunade noted. It would have been, Kakashi agreed. Had the reason I was fine not been Obito pushing me out of the way at the last second and getting crushed himself. He gave me a Sharingan, which he had only awoken less than half an hour before, to make up for the eye I lost saving him. He called it a Jounin present since he hadn't gotten me one earlier. I didn't realize what the kunai you gave me really was, and so when I used it, it called you and you saved Rin and I from the IWA reinforcements. Just like I did years ago, Minato said softly. Except that Obito. Exactly, Kakashi nodded. We went on to destroy the bridge and end the war. I've always been a genius, so you can imagine the things I could do with a Sharingan. I may not be an Uchiha, but I could wield it better than most of them ever could. I got a reputation as Sharingan Kakashi, which I must confess I much prefer to my current moniker Man Down Kakashi, but beggars can't be choosers and I wasn't desperate enough to go corpse robbing. Rin died a little later, and even though I didn't come back to save her, things had changed enough by that point that she lived. Don't forget to mention the big thing, Naruto prompted. Because Sasuke bet me 500 ryo that it wouldn't turn out the way it has the last 3 times the subject has come up. Kakashi rolled his eyes. Right. You never told anyone how you planned to stop the Kyuubi all those years ago. By the time we found out, it was too late. You were dead and Naruto was an orphan. Nobody by Jiraiya and the Sandaime really even knew what the seal was. The Sandaime chose to try and protect Naruto from your enemies by not revealing who he was, and so he had Kushin his name. While no one felt the need to mention that he was the son of a hero, the Sandaime did decide to inform everyone of Naruto's Jinchuriki status. So? Anko was puzzled. Everyone knows now and it's fine. I mean, maybe he wouldn't get special treatment for being the Hokage's son if nobody knew, but still. Naruto snorted. That's only because of Dad's "My son is a hero" campaign. With him dead and old man Hokage pretending not to know who I was, well, with the fact that no one seemed to know anything about my parentage, a lot of people just assumed I was the Kyuubi sealed into human form. I'd rather not go into the details, but my childhood was far from idyllic. I didn't even find out why everyone hated me until I was 12 and someone who tried to betray the village decided to let me know, as there was a law preventing anyone from telling anyone, including me, that didn't hear about my Jinchuriki status from the official announcement. Minato's eyes flashed. I can't believe they would spit on your sacrifice like that. You haven't had any problems in this timeline, have you? None whatsoever, Naruto assured his father. In fact, it's kind of disturbing just how little hatred I'm getting. Before, I needed to defeat the guy who destroyed Konoha and convince him to bring half the village back to life before I was so universally accepted. I'm going to need to hear all about that. You do realize, Minato said seriously. Whoever managed that sounds like a threat. I'm going to need to hear all about it, too, Jiraiya added. Although mostly just because it sounds like quite a story. Was that what you meant when you said that Sandaime-sama's assertion that you were not responsible for his death would save you from many an accusation of murder? Itachi asked suddenly. And why you needed written proof? For all the good that did me, Kakashi muttered. Wait, Minato said slowly. Does this mean that you killed the third? Kakashi just groaned. Naruto blinked. Wait, he asked if that was the case instead of just assuming that it was. Does that count? I don't know, Sasuke admitted. Sakura? Sakura smirked. I think it does. And if you really wanted me to agree with you, maybe you shouldn't have given me such a hard time during the exam. I don't know what you're talking about, Sasuke denied as he reluctantly reached into one of the pockets of his new Chuunin vest and took out 500 ryo. You're the best, Sakura-chan, Naruto cheered as he pocketed his winnings. Minato was confused. What dash? So is that everything? Tsunade inquired, bringing them back on topic. Kakashi thought back. Everything important I think. Wait, no. Back when Hinata was 3 and that Kumo ambassador tried to kidnap her, Hayashi was supposed to kill him, and so when Kumo demanded blood Hisashi was killed and sent over instead so the Byakugan would remain out of Kumo's hands. Niji had even more issues because of that. Minato looked mildly horrified. Even more issues than the ones that already caused him to fail the MSR? You did what you had to do, Kakashi. So that's basically it, Kakashi finished. And finding out that they would have been dead before they even got a chance to meet Sasuke or Naruto was part of the reason that I didn't want them to be here today. Only part? Itachi asked shrewdly. Naruto nodded, figuring it was his turn next. The other part has to do with when and why I came back. Everyone already knows this except for Baa-chan and Anko, I think, but it doesn't really matter if Baa-chan knows and we can't really make Anko leave the room now, can we? Don't call me that. Tsunade cried. We've been over this before, Naruto reminded her. If you want me to stop calling you Baa-chan then you need to stop being old. I'm not old. Tsunade insisted. But you call Ero-sennin old and you're the same age, Naruto pointed out. Tsunade closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Trying to murder the brat in front of his father was probably not the way to go. Just hurry up and tell us whatever you came back for. Keep in mind that this was before I realized that we had ended up in the same timelines, Naruto told them. I knew that Sasuke had some vengeance issues when he grew up and so I intended to be there for him after the massacre. Only intended? Jiraiya asked curiously. I met Kakashi on a double date with Anko, Obito, and Rin and realized that something wasn't quite right and the two of us eventually realized that we had both time traveled, Naruto explained. So I decided to dash. I remember that. Anko interrupted. You couldn't believe we were dating. I believe your words were something along the lines of Anko of all people. To be fair, Kakashi was pretty much a confirmed bachelor before we went back, Naruto defended himself. And like I was saying, after I found out that Sasuke was coming back as well, I decided I didn't want my trip back to be wasted so I decided to. Decided to what? Itaki asked quietly, not looking at Sasuke. He never did when the subject of the destruction of the Uchiha clan came up. Naruto steeled himself. I decided to impersonate Orochimaru. I had Kakashi gather a crowd and provide plenty of witnesses that he was the one to kill everyone. Tsunade didn't look surprised. She had probably realized that wiping out such a powerful and versatile Kekkai Genkai wasn't her former teammate style. Anko, however, was quite shocked. You mean that's not what happened? Then who did? There was silence for a moment before Sasuke finally broke it by replying, my brother. But, why? And why is he still here? And he was only 13, wasn't he? Anko fired off the questions in rapid succession. Since nobody else seemed like they wanted to deal with these questions, Sasuke replied, yes, he was. He didn't do it alone, though. Madara also partook in the massacre. As for the why, my family was planning a coup. It took me years, really, to make my peace with it, as it were, but now that Madara is dead and Danzo, Koharu, and Homura are long dead I consider all debts settled. When did you come back? Minato demanded, his eyes wide. Shortly before hearing the news of Danzo's murder-suicide, Sasuke said neutrally. What happened to the three of them in your timeline? Minato asked seriously. Did you have anything to do with it? In our timeline, Danzo didn't kill himself and then when we were 11, Naruto immediately spoke up, for the moment not caring that he was lying to the Hokage and his father. I think the difference in Konoha must have pushed up his timetable. When I was 16 or so and Danzo was confronted with the results of his machinations, he decided to take him. Subscribe to Infinite Novel for more adventure. Chapter 35 Disclaimer, I do not own Naruto. Note, once the MSR is passed, there are no takebacks. After all, if there were, would anyone actually still qualify for Chuunin? Team 7 might be insane, but they didn't reveal how much until after they secured their promotion. Needless to say, there were quite a few questions. It took a while to get through them all, but once that was over with the added details were enough to erode much of the non-time traveler's skepticism about the whole situation, not that stopped them all from dragging one of the time travelers off to continue their discussion in private. Anko wanted to talk to Kakashi, Minato needed to understand just how bad things had been for Naruto without him, Sasuke and Itachi had some issues to work out, and Jiraiya and Tsunade really had nothing better to do than pester Sakura for more information. So when exactly were you planning on telling me that you were a time traveler from an almost ridiculously different timeline where the Sandaime has been in charge for all this time? Tsunade would become Hokage as soon as Naruto and Jiraiya found her, Obito and Rin were dead, we all thought Itachi was evil, and we barely knew each other? Anko asked sweetly the minute they were safely inside their shared apartment. I was planning on mentioning it to you right after my students made Chunin, so the story about us time traveling, or, if we were believed, our reasons for said time traveling, wouldn't prevent them from passing the MSR. I can't imagine why I never did. Kakashi trailed off. Oh wait, I did tell you literally the day after Team 7 was promoted, just like I said I would. True, Anko acknowledged. But you also said that the only reason you were going to tell any of us was because Naruto slipped up and you couldn't cover how he knew how to go into Sage mode. Besides, the only reason you were even there at all for the explanation is because your students made us wait for over 2 hours until you finally decided to show up. It's my fault, really, Kakashi said mournfully. I never should have gotten them in the habit of waiting around for me for hours on end, or else they would have cracked and just told you themselves. Of course, given that was years and years ago and presumably their later instructors wouldn't have had my tendency towards tardiness, the fact that they managed to stay in practice is rather impressive. Is that a yes? I never would have told you if Naruto had used a different technique, Anko demanded. Kakashi winced. Possibly. I get why you don't want to tell the world, I really do, Anko assured him. People aren't liable to believe you, or they won't know how to act if they think you are telling them the truth. They'll look at you and suddenly everything they thought they knew about you is being called into question, and it will be weird. And considering that the world hadn't ended when you came back, and from what I can tell you've done quite a bit to either neutralize or outright kill a lot of the people who would have gone on to cause problems in your future, it really isn't necessary to warn anyone of anything. Suddenly everything they thought they knew about you is being called into question, Kakashi repeated. Is that how you feel? Anko took a moment before answering. A little. You have this whole separate history that I can never understand. I know how close you are with Obito, I can imagine how losing him would kill you. Then losing Rin and the Yondaime on top of it, I can imagine, but I'm never really going to get it because as far as I've seen, you never did. You say we barely knew each other, and if that's the case, then I have to wonder, why would you go after me? I lost everyone close to me in a very short period of time, Kakashi explained quietly. I was a prodigy who graduated at 5, as you know, which never does anyone any favors. My father was disgraced and killed himself and I overcompensated, but that still wasn't enough to save anyone. I had a lot of issues, and so honestly, the prospect of entering a romantic relationship, it just wasn't going to happen. But Guy was always there to make sure I didn't steer completely away from human contact, and then my students came along, and even though there were many times that I thought they were more trouble than they were worth, particularly Sasuke when he was going through his crazy year after he technically killed Itachi, they certainly did their part in bringing me back to the land of the living. And me? Anko pressed, uncertain of what, exactly, she wanted to hear. Once my old team was saved and I knew that, even if they wouldn't necessarily be the same people I remembered, I would get my new team back, things were different. I'd been through hell, I'd come back in one piece, and I highly doubted that I would manage to make things worse than they had been. It's not like I planned for us to happen, it just did, Kakashi told her seriously. He smiled wryly. As horribly cliched as it may be, sometimes love does just happen. Are you just going to stare at me all day? Naruto asked, fidgeting a little as he looked at his father, who had been staring at him from across their kitchen table for quite some time. Because it's getting a little creepy. Sorry, Minato apologized, shaking his head as if to clear it. I just can't believe, well, any of this. The part about the time travel? Naruto asked. Because while I had kind of expected Kakashi to have already told you once I realized he'd spent a good decade living in the past, I can also sort of understand why he wouldn't want to, or even how to convince everyone that it was true, for that matter. No, I think I'm actually starting to believe you, Minato confided. You know far too much, both as a newly minted Chunin and as my son who I wanted to keep far away from some of Konoha's less than proud moments. Then what's the mental stumbling block? Naruto wanted to know. Just how bad was your childhood? Minato demanded. I mean, I knew it wouldn't be easy and there was a sizable resistance to seeing you as the hero you were back in those early days, but by the time you were actually old enough to remember anything, the villagers had come around. Naruto thought back. The ninja themselves were always professional if unhelpful. It was the citizens who understood even less than the ninja did and lacked their discipline that caused most of my problems. How bad was it, Naruto? Minato asked again, piercing his son with a gaze. Naruto merely shook his head. You love this village, Dad. I love this village, for all that nobody understands how I managed that prior to the Chunin exams when things started to change. I don't want you to have to get all worked up over things that have never happened. Minato sighed. You're right, I suppose. Still, how could things have been so bad for you? I was in the middle of telling Sarutobi-sama that wanted you to be seen as a hero when Kakashi burst in informing him what I was planning on doing, and from what I understand, in the other timeline I did make my wishes clear. Add that to the fact that Jiraiya was apparently alive and well, why couldn't he have taken you in or something? He's your godfather. Naruto shrugged. I really don't know. He never really got around to mentioning he was my godfather because had he done that he would have had to explain why he couldn't be bothered to be a responsible adult and take me in. Oh, and that you were my father, which didn't come out until after his death. Still, I think it was mostly the fact he just couldn't be bothered. What was he even doing that he couldn't take in his own godson until you were ready to become his apprentice? Minato wondered, already planning on yelling at his mentor later even if the Jiraiya he'd be lecturing was one that was never called upon to take in his orphan son and looking for ammunition. I think he was keeping tabs on Orochimaru and, after he joined up, the flowery cloaked assassins, Naruto informed him. And while I'm not positive because I didn't find out about Itachi's true allegiance until both he and Erosenin were both dead, I think he was also Itachi's contact. Why do you keep calling the Akatsuki the flowery cloaked assassins? Minato inquired, genuinely curious. Their cloaks had clouds on it, if I recall correctly. Because it pisses them off and they pissed me off, Naruto said bluntly. But then again, given that they kidnapped Gaara and tortured him to death, he got better, but there was a unique set of circumstances that lead to that, and then proceeded to hunt down all of the other Jinchuriki, including me. Maybe it's not surprising that I've never been very fond of them. I see, Minato said. But what about now? Did we kill or take down all of them or are there still members of the Akatsuki out there? I'm not sure if all of the missing nin on the original roster even joined up, Naruto replied. From what Kakuzu was saying, I don't think Haiden was a member, for instance. Two people who I know were involved and not neutralized are Konan and Nagato. Konan and Nagato? Minato repeated. Who are there? They were the official leaders of Akatsuki, even if Madara was really the one pulling the strings, Naruto revealed. Of course, there's really nothing you can do to them legally as they are the legitimate rulers of a megacorps following a coup and a civil war, I think. Nagato hates us because Konoha Ninja accidentally killed his parents one time and I think Danzo screwed him over once. Konan only hates us because Nagato does, so if we make an effort to at the very least not screw them over anymore and possibly offer some sort of aid, we should be able to neutralize him. That might be something to consider, Minato agreed. Although, of course, I'll need to look into the situation more. Don't bother sending a spy, Naruto warned him. It rains all the time in a megacorps and the rain lets them know when someone who isn't supposed to be there arrives. Last time Jiraiya went and Nagato killed him. Of course, he goes by Pain but I think that's a brutish name so I call him Nagato. I think I've heard the name Nagato before, Minato mused aloud. He was once Jiraiya's student, Naruto explained. Fun fact, he's the guy my namesake is based on in Erosenin's only child-friendly book, and he managed to kill Jiraiya? Minato looked extremely concerned. Anyone that powerful was definitely someone to watch out for. Nagato is insanely powerful, yes, Naruto confirmed. He kind of cheats since he uses reanimated corpses and stays far away from the fighting himself but doing so seems to take its toll on his actual body. He has the Rinnegan, you see, and he was able to stand up to me until I went 8 tails. That wasn't the best idea, but I did enjoy freaking him out. That settles it, I am definitely going to be looking into this very closely the minute we're done with rebuilding and making sure there's no lasting damage to our alliance with Suna, Minato decided. Oh, are you having problems with that since they halfway betrayed us? Naruto asked, intrigued. Minato nodded. Among other things, they thought the best way to ensure peace was a political marriage between you and the previous Kazekige's daughter, Temari. All of the color drained from Naruto's face. You said no, right? Of course I said no, Minato assured his son. They're the ones who halfway betrayed us, why should they get to make demands? Naruto let out a huge sigh of relief. Oh thank God. I thought future Shikamaru would somehow find out and then also come back in time and kill me. Itachi and Sasuke didn't go home as they didn't want to risk Rin or Obito walking in at the wrong time. Instead, they headed over to the vacant but preserved Uchiha district and walked in silence for some time. So you've known the entire time, Itachi said finally. It depends on what you mean by that, really, Sasuke replied. Originally, there was no Naruto to pull off an over-the-top cover-up and pin the blame on someone he sincerely believes to be a child molester and no Kakashi to back him up. There was only me coming back from training to find a district full of bodies and you, standing over mom and dad, doing your best to convince me that you were a psychopath and to try and push me into getting stronger, ostensibly so I could get vengeance on you. Madara said you always planned on dying by my hand, both so I could get the Mangekyo Sharingan to better protect myself and so I could avenge our clan and be hailed as a hero. Is that true? I really did not have the rest of my life mapped out so fully, but I can certainly see that as a viable option, Itachi answered. Probably the best option. How? Sasuke demanded. How could me hating you and killing you possibly be the best option? Itachi answered the question with one of his own. You understand that I had to leave Konoha, correct? The clan could not be destroyed with no culprit, everyone would panic over the security breach. With the lack of convenient blame claiming missing nin, the person held responsible would have to be me. What about Madara? Sasuke challenged. He was involved, I know, and letting people know he was alive would have saved us all a lot of trouble in the end. How would I have known he was alive? Itachi inquired. Why hadn't I mentioned him sooner? How did I know that it was, in fact, really him, especially since he never took his mask off? It was rather unbelievable but everyone knew I existed and it provided the perfect opportunity for Konoha to place one of its own in the Akatsuki. We knew very little about it, but if it were truly run by Madara, Konoha was certain to feel its wrath at some point. But what about me? Sasuke pressed. Itachi cocked his head. You were 8, Sasuke. Do you really think you would have been better off growing up on the run surrounded by missing nin? Sometimes people become missing nin for political reasons, but usually they are violent amoral people that children should not spend vast periods of time with. I would have been better off with you, Sasuke insisted stubbornly. Would you have? Itachi wondered aloud. I somehow doubt it. Missing nin have no future, you know. A group like the Akatsuki, while I am not the expert I seem to have been in your first timeline, would provide more of a direction and a better chance of survival by joining with other powerful missing nin, but you would still have no options. I was not about to destroy your future any more than killing the clan already had. But they wanted to kill me, Sasuke pointed out. Only Danzo wanted to kill you, Itachi countered. And he clearly didn't. The council saw the benefits of keeping the Sharingan in existence, and you were young enough not to be a threat or even remotely involved in the coup. I do not remember much of the Saname, but if he was anything like Hokage-sama, then he would be more than willing to let you live, as you were so very clearly innocent. Alright, so maybe me staying in Konoha was for the best, Sasuke conceded grudgingly. But why was it so important that I hate you? I mean, I can understand that you really can't answer why you'd go so far to ensure that I would, since you haven't, but you must have had a plan for when I showed up ready. Getting me on the path you wanted, since that was going to be the last I'd see of you for years, was a little too important to be left to improvisation. I had just ruined your life, Sasuke, Itachi explained. And you were 8. You were far too young to be left on your own, but the clan needed to be stopped and I really could not stay. You needed a purpose, or I feared you would just waste away. You were in danger, even if you didn't realize it. Not only was everyone who wanted a Sharingan going to realize that between the two options they knew of, you were easily the more practical option, but Madara was out there and I knew he would come after you the minute I was gone. You needed to get stronger, and if your hatred of me and desire to avenge the clan would save you, then so be it. You know, I think dying allowing me to hate you is the one thing I can't forgive you for, Sasuke said softly. You killed our family, but they used you, both our clan and the Konoha higher UPS. They used you and you knew that, and it was a bad situation that never should have happened. It did, though, and it may very well have been inevitable. Once I learned the truth, I was already thoroughly sick of hating you, but you'd always been so careful to never give me a reason not to. Once I found a reason, I really don't see how I could have not forgiven you. So instead you took it out on Konoha. Itachi sounded faintly disapproving. Sasuke winced. That was the year I was having a lot of problems. Suffice to say, it all got worked out eventually, and I'd really rather not talk about it. You were clearly having problems before if you abandoned Konoha for the likes of Orochimaru, Itachi noted. Sasuke scowled and crossed his arms. In my defense, I had a curse seal that was accentuating all of my negative emotions. Naruto had just taken down a transformed Gaara single-handedly while I could barely even move. You had just shown up because the Saname had died to warn Danzo not to touch me and ended up putting me in a Tsukuyomi-induced coma. And to make matters worse, Kakashi had just asked me to give up vengeance. Those Oto nin caught me at a really good time. You still should not have left, Itachi insisted. Sasuke shrugged. While I agree that the less time spent with Orochimaru the better, I got where I am today because of the path I took then. And besides, it's all worked out. And to get back to your original question, in this timeline, I believe that Orochimaru was responsible for the massacre until I was 11 and came back the day that Danzo and the council died. Did you kill them? Itachi asked sharply. Would you really want to know if I did? Sasuke shot back. Bear in mind that by the time I heard they were dead, I still hadn't recovered my memories of this timeline prior to coming back and had no idea you were still in Konoha. Itachi was quiet for a moment. No, I would rather not know, he conceded. So Jiraiya and Naruto forced me to become Godame, huh? Tsunade asked the moment the three of them were alone in her office. I guess so, Sakura confirmed. I personally wasn't there, but Jiraiya said it was all him. Then Naruto said all he did was get poisoned, and so he was really the one who did all the work. All I know was that it involved you kicking Orochimaru's ass. Poisoned? Jiraiya moaned. Jiraiya the gallant should never get poisoned, it's just bad form. I'm going to blame Tsunade for that one since you— Chapter 36 Disclaimer, I do not own Naruto. Note, I don't remember the exact quote, but I've heard that every story ends with either a wedding or a funeral, or, to be more precise, with the characters in love or dead, and since this is a parody, let there be a wedding, or at least the aftermath of one. 3 weeks passed and everything was slowly returning to normal after the invasion, although the effects of the time travel secret being shared were still lingering. Tsunade was refusing to so much as step foot in the Hokage Tower. Jiraiya had sent a missive off to Omegacore telling Nagato and Konan he had heard they were running the village and informing them that he would have kept in contact, but he had believed them to be dead. Minato had opened up a dialogue with the leaders of Omegacore, who couldn't have been more surprised. Itachi looked more relaxed now that he no longer had to fear Sasuke finding out the truth, but not pleased that his brother knew. And Anko had added guilt Kakashi about not mentioning he was a time traveler to a rather lengthy list of ways to get Kakashi to show up places on time. Minato had also taken up eyeing some of the villagers suspiciously, but as per Naruto's request, tried to remember that his son had never been ostracized in this timeline. Not that stopped him from yelling at Jiraiya, of course. Almost before they knew it, the day of Anko and Kakashi's wedding was upon them. As Kakashi was much more lively in this timeline than his previous one, and due to his close association with the Hokage, all of the ninja knew him and most showed up to the ceremony. To the surprise of nearly everyone present, Kakashi actually showed up 15 minutes before the ceremony was to start of his own volition, that is, if by of his own volition one meant because he was terrified of what Anko would do to him if he was late. Still, he was there and got married without a hitch, and that was really all that mattered. Then, of course, there was the reception. Alcohol was provided and, perhaps foolishly, no one had thought to set a limit on drinks or minimum age, so anyone who had graduated from the academy and made it to Genin could have as much as they liked. I can't believe you finally got married, Obito remarked as he downed yet another drink. He wasn't drunk yet, but at the rate he was going he'd be feeling it in the morning. You and Anko were dating for, what, 5 years? I honestly thought you were going to die a bachelor at the speed you were going. I didn't want to rush things, Kakashi claimed. And Anko didn't care when we got married as long as she didn't think I wasn't taking our relationship seriously. And did she ever think that? Obito felt the need to ask. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. I'm still alive and unmaimed, aren't I? Obito conceded. Your new wife is kind of crazy, you know that, right? Kakashi rolled his eyes. If I didn't, don't you think now's a little late to be warning me about this? If you didn't notice after 5 years of dating, you completely deserve to find out on your own, Obito claimed. We're veteran ninja, Kakashi pointed out. We're all a little crazy. Or a lot. Or disturbingly so. The point is, there's a reason there's no MSR to become a jounin. Besides, the crazy is half the fun. I don't know, Obito said slowly. Her one-time crush on you notwithstanding, Rin seems to be fairly stable. You want to know why I was never able to return her feelings? That's part of it right there, Kakashi declared. Well, I, for one, am grateful that she's too sane for your tastes, Obito laughed. And I, for one, am officially starting to feel old, Minato announced, coming up to stand beside them. All 3 of my former students are now happily married and I'm still single. Obito grinned. And you're over here because Jiraiya and Sune didn't appreciate you talking about being old when you're 15 or so years younger than them? And what are you worried about? You don't really have to feel worried about feeling old until Naruto's wedding. Minato sighed. Naruto's wedding. I know he's only 13, but I've heard so many things about his potential love interests that I'm starting to have nightmares about it already. You mean because no one can make up their mind if he's going to marry Sakura and you'll have pink-haired grandchildren, Hinata, and you'll have to deal with Hyuga tradition every step of the way. Gaara and Naruto will be the only Hokage to have ever lived in Suna, or Sasuke, and they'll probably not bother with a wedding but just live in sin for the rest of their lives, Kakashi asked innocently. Minato groaned. Yes. I have got to stop talking to Kurane or I'm never going to get any sleep until he's engaged. Or not, if it's Sasuke, Kakashi added helpfully. Of course, then Itachi might very well kill him for corrupting his little brother. So not helping, Minato complained, shaking his head and resolving to keep a closer eye on his son and his interaction with the 4 supposed top contenders for his heart from now on. I can't believe it only takes 2 shots to get Lee completely wasted, Niji was complaining. How in the world did he manage to pass the MSR and not me? I suspect the lack of alcohol present at the exam might have had something to do with it, Tenten replied dryly. And so what if he has a bit of an extreme reaction to alcohol? That doesn't necessarily bring his sanity into question. He's fighting imaginary opponents, Niji pointed out. And 2 shots isn't nearly enough alcohol to start hallucinating, so he's either seeing things on his own, which calls his sanity into question, or legitimately thinks he's fighting invisible opponents, which also, coincidentally, calls his sanity into question. 2 shots might be enough alcohol for that last one, Tenten told him thoughtfully. I could always call him over and ask him whether his enemy is invisible or not, if you'd like. No, Niji shouted. He cleared his throat. I mean, that's hardly necessary. He's likely to do less damage fighting his invisible enemies. True, Tenten allowed. So I suppose we should be thankful that it's worked out like this. Remind me to never, ever let Lee near alcohol again, though. Sooner or later, he'd do some collateral damage or start looking for real opponents. Agreed, Niji said grimly. Where is Gai-sensei, anyway? He should be putting a stop to this or something. He's right over there, Tenten said, gesturing over to their teacher standing a few feet back from Lee and partially hidden by some trees. I think he's taking notes. Taking notes, Niji repeated. You don't think he means to see if he can get Lee to utilize his drunken strength in battle, do you? Would it surprise you in the slightest if he did exactly that? Tenten asked rhetorically. Niji sighed deeply. I guess that means we're going to have to hide the alcohol from Gai-sensei, too. And to think, apparently I'm the unbalanced one. Well, you were doing fine until you started ranting at Sakura, Tenten reminded him. And when she flat out told you at the end that she wouldn't have one if you hadn't wasted so much time ranting at her certainly didn't help matters. Maybe if you'd won they might have been able to overlook that, but as it stands, it was really all I could not to start lecturing her about how inappropriate her hair color was for a ninja, Niji said honestly. I mean, seriously, Pink? You just can't take that seriously and it's horrible for stealth. I figured that would not go over very well, however, and went for my fallback lecture. That was probably a good idea, Tenten decided, but it still cost you Chuyunin status. But don't worry, we're sure to make it in the next exam 6 months from now. So, Hinata, Kiba asked. You know how your cousin is really, really scary. Which cousin would that be? Hinata inquired. I have many relatives, after all. I think he means Niji, Shino told her, if the way he jumps when Niji looks at him is any indication. I do not jump, Kiba scowled. Although yes, I do mean Niji. I have never been scared of him, Hinata answered. So no, I'm sorry but I wouldn't really know. Well, pretend you know that, Kiba instructed. Does the fact that he's considered a prodigy and is a year older than us with a year's more worth of experience as a genin and yet he failed to make Chuyunin but everyone else in the finals managed just fine bother him? I think it does, a little, Hinata confessed. Although I think it is mostly that Lee made it and not him. Their rivals and things tend to get messy when it looks like one of them is superior to the other in something. At least Tenten's with him, Kiba declared. I know she'll calm him down. What do you mean? Shino asked. No, wait, I am nearly positive I do not wish to know. Too late, you asked, Kiba told him smugly. Tenten and Neji are so clearly interested in each other that it's inevitable that they'll start dating sooner or later, especially because they have no real reason not to, as neither of them is in denial about their sexuality or have a single-minded obsession that precludes them from committing to a relationship. You think that they like each other? Hinata asked, surprised. How come? I wouldn't know for sure, of course, but I think that they were drawn together by their need to find a bit of sanity amongst the craziness which is Lee and Guy, Kiba theorized. Which is rather ironic given that Lee passed the MSR and Neji didn't. Tenten didn't have to face the MSR, so I don't know how she would do. Perhaps I have it all wrong and Guy and Lee are too sane for them. Of course, that is in and of itself a very scary thought. Why must you attempt to play matchmaker with everyone you know? Shino demanded. It gets very tiresome sometimes. I do not play matchmaker. Kiba insisted, affronted. I just point out the obvious. And speaking of, I saw Kurane-sensei and Asuma holding hands last week, so I'd like it to be known that I was totally right about that. If you pair everyone up, sooner or later you will be right once, Shino said shortly. I do not pair everyone up, Kiba claimed. Really? Hinata asked surprised. It really seems like it, though. Sure, the most obvious secret love is the one between Sasuke and Naruto, and that one guy with the navel shirt I thought would be good together talked for the better part of 2 hours earlier tonight. Temari and Shikamaru seem like they could balance each other out when he gets older. Tenten and Neji are practically dating already, Kurane-sensei and Asuma are dating, Jiraiya seems just a few more rejections away from a shot with Tsunade, and Kankuro spends a little too much time with his puppets. Is no reason to think I'm obsessive or anything, Kiba claimed. Where did we go wrong with you? Shino wondered aloud. And is it too late to reverse the damage? Hey, it's not like Kurane-sensei doesn't do it, too, Kiba said defensively. Although her track record isn't 100%. Did you know that she used to think Kakashi and Irika had a thing before Anko entered the picture? It took her years before she was convinced Anko wasn't just Kakashi's beard. And speaking of Sakura, no one on Team 7 has shown any interest in each other. Or in anyone, Hinata objected, somewhat sadly. So I don't believe that Sasuke or Naruto are using Sakura in that regard. Kiba snorted. No interest indeed. And Sakura, she's hard to pin down. I can't tell if she has feelings for Naruto, Sasuke, Lee, or Ino. Who knows? Maybe she can't make up her mind either, and that's why I'm getting these mixed signals. Did Kiba just decide Sakura might be in love with me and I'm in love with Sai? Ino wondered, sitting down beside Shikamaru and Koji on the grass. Kiba thinks everyone is in love with each other, Shikamaru replied, stretching his arms. The whole thing is rather troublesome. You would think that since he thinks you'll end up with a violent and bossy girl with two brothers who are either psychotic or a Jinchuriki, Koji noted. At least he did not put me with Ino, Shikamaru murmured. Ino's eye twitched. Excuse me? Keep in mind that I'd sooner stab myself than date you, but why are you so against the idea of dating someone as beautiful as me? Well, I think Temari might be even more troublesome than you are. She does live in Suna and you are my teammate, so if we did date and things ended badly, it would be more troublesome if it were you rather than her, Shikamaru explained. Of course, girls are far too troublesome to bother with anyway. Better not tell Kiba that, Koji warned. He'll simply decide you're gay and before you know it he'll go around insisting we're in love. At least it would be less troublesome, Shikamaru mused. And no children, either. Children seem like they would be troublesome. Temari's right, Ino said, rolling her eyes. We really could replace you with a button that said troublesome and no one would notice the difference. Of course, given that I've yet to get my vengeance on her and she's bravely ran away to Suna, if she decided she liked you, I might be willing to bite the bullet and date you first so I could get back at her that way. You're such an admirable person, Ino, Shikamaru deadpanned. Ino smiled brightly. I know, it's a gift. I don't think that's quite what he meant, Koji said quietly. But who is this Sai guy? Do we know him? Oh, he's the guy I was talking to earlier, Ino explained. He's cute and looks kind of like Sasuke-kun, but there's no way I'd date him just yet. He has issues. Shikamaru raised an eyebrow. Issues. And Sasuke doesn't. Issues as in, he was in a secret illegal branch of Umbu that tried to turn him into an emotionless zombie until their leader died less than 2 years ago, Ino clarified. He says he's made a lot of progress, which is a bit unnerving, but I'm sure he'll make more in the years to come. Besides, unlike certain other people I could mention, he always calls me beautiful. Telling you what you so obviously want to hear, Shikamaru said wryly. That's absolutely amazing, really. That's it, Temari would have to want to have your babies before I'd even remotely consider getting involved with you, Ino declared dramatically. Thank God for small mercies, Shikamaru muttered. What did you say? If Kiba thinks hostility is secretly a sign of hidden affection, why doesn't he think Ino and Shikamaru could make it? Koji wondered. Do you ever get the feeling that all of our friends are insane? Naruto wondered aloud. All the time, Sasuke replied promptly. And all things considered, that's really saying something coming from the three of us. Well, it's not like they don't think we're crazy, too, Sakura pointed out. But at least we have having to relive at least a few years of our lives as our excuse. What's theirs? Insanity is contagious, Naruto suggested. Seriously, with less Neji brooding and Sasuke having enough sense to keep his issues to himself, what's there to get all serious over? Everyone was pretty lighthearted. Subscribe to Infinite Novel for more adventures.